That music, that music was intense. Thank you for the intro. I'd like to thank everyone out here for joining us on this Chill with Jim episode, where it is always business up top and pajamas on the bottom. Like to thank y'all for coming out. And I said, y'all, we're going to roll with it. So I am your host, Jim McCarthy, and I am the client advocate for Strix, Louisiana. And my job is to make sure that our clients are set up with the best equipment, the best software, and the best possible IT solutions to help make sure that their businesses are running at optimal efficiency. So we also have David DeArmond with us.
Hey guys, David DeOrman here, owner of Strix, Louisiana. And hey, I appreciate you guys joining in and looking forward to this one. It's going to have some good advice on things that we can hopefully do to slow down the bad guys over 2021.
I hope so. I hope so. We got a few people on with us that are on the front line, so it's very exciting to have that. Just a little bit about Strix before we do kick it off. At Strix, at Strix Louisiana, we believe there's always a better, simpler, more secure way to do just about everything in this world. So what that means to us is that we are constantly searching for and adapting our processes to make sure that we do indeed have the best possible IT solution in place. And we believe that part of this responsibility is to help educate our clients as well as others in the world. We're going to bring them up to date on some of the current trends in the IT world, definitely highlighting some security issues that we're noticing. And then we really want to use this as just kind of like an awareness bringer to everybody out there. And hopefully you can go back and look at episodes and use them as things pop up in your life. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a fantastic episode, and it opened up all kinds of discussion. And so what we did is we took some of the highlights of that, and David, that if give us a little breakdown of the last episode, so I'm not the only one talking here. So in case they weren't there.
Yeah, well, we went over what we expect to see as far as security threats go over 2021. It was a scary episode. We had Harley Kimball on that call, and he's a pen tester. We had David Brin was on that call, and he's doing a whole lot of study and writing on cybersecurity. And then we had Brad Proctor on there as well. And so all three of these guys are cybersecurity guys. And the things that were brought up during that call, I'm in this business, and it was still scary to me. So we wanted to cover a little bit of what can you do. So if you're a business facing all of this, what can you do to slow this down?
Exactly. And we came up, like, just the discussion itself brought up some very, very good topics and questions that we touched on, but we weren't really able to dive into. So today we're going to bring up some of those, talk about them. I'd like to get interaction on people's thoughts, and then we do have suggestions to go ahead and keep you safe. So one of the first and most prominent things that we see on our industry is that a lot of small businesses and a lot of individuals are assuming that they are not a target because they are so small, because, hey, I'm only Joe Smith with a Facebook account and a bank account. No one's going to want my information. So these are some of the ideas I think that are quite prevalent out there right now, and lead to excuses why we don't need to do anything about our cyber hygiene. But if you think about it, even if you're just Joe Smith, I think I called him, and you're just barely using the computer, but you do use that computer for maybe something with your work, your banking, or anything like this, you are now a target because you lead to something bigger. And so you always have to kind of think of this bigger picture here with, they probably don't want just Jim McCarthy. They want Jim McCarthy's work information. They want Jim McCarthy's bank money. They want his social security card. And all of this can create a a lot of bad things in my world that I might not realize because I just think it's nothing. It's my Facebook account. Um,
Yeah,
but we're
but
gonna,
before we started recording here, David Brent even mentioned that, what was it, your dad, David, that you mentioned, or someone that had their identity stolen?
Yeah, it was my father. They'd gone in for a loan or a refinance or something on their house, and the way that it came up is they ran a background check on his credit that they hadn't done in a while because I mean they're older, they didn't really have a lot of stuff that they were doing, and it came up that a very very distant family member was using his identity in Arizona. My parents are in Virginia, and it's all a matter of what does that identity give you access to, not only stealing their money, but maybe you can use their credit to get credit cards that you can then exploit. You can use it for access to influence. I mean, you're saying oh my Facebook, well, that's all of your Facebook friends contact information, all of their personal information. So if you can pivot and get visibility into all of those other contacts, it opens up the door for all kinds of information.
Yeah, so there you go. Your dad's probably, like Jim was mentioning, I don't have anything. They don't care about me. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they do. And there's proof right there that, yeah, they do.
yeah, and that's a great point. We always like to start with kind of some of the why. And so I'm going to throw a few stats out there and just to kind of open our eyes to what's happening right now. Also to bring up, it's going to be a little bit scary at times today, but that's why I have the beach behind us. So whenever we get scared and we get nervous, let's all just pretend we're right at the beach. We're doing some chill with Jim and everything's okay. Okay, so that's why I have that back there because we might get a little bit nervous today. So just this is from the FBI's report. They haven't done a 2020 report, internet crime report yet. So it's only 2019 information, but I'm guessing that's probably because 2020 was out of control. So they're still counting all that stuff. So just looking at cyber attacks alone for small businesses in the US economy, according to that FBI internet report, crime report, the cost of cyber crimes in 2019 reached $3.5 billion. Now, what's very, very important to look at here is that in 2018, it was $1.5 billion less. So if we're looking at an expansion rate like that, that is very, very, very scary. I mean, $1.5 billion in 1 year. I mean, unless you're Strix, Louisiana, that's unheard of. So, and those are only the ones that are reported. Actually, David Brent and I were talking about that. A lot of people aren't reporting this stuff. There's always the embarrassment. You don't want to be public with this. So like, oh, our company fell to a phishing scheme or, or there's this mindset as well where they're not going to do anything. So why am I going to tell them? And so I think we're missing some dollar figures there for just the people who aren't reporting it. And interesting, the most frequently reported complaint was phishing or similar phishing email schemes or similar ploys, non-payment, non-delivery scams, and extortion. Now, the most financially costly to all of the entities out there in 2019 was business email compromise, romance or confidence fraud. I believe that's like when you're degrading someone's reputation, and spoofing or mimicking the account of the person or vendor known to the victim to gather their personal information. So 1.7 billion of that was just to the email compromise alone. Why is this? Well, small businesses are attractive as targets because they have information that the cybersecurity wants, and they typically lack the security infrastructure of a larger business.
Yeah, that's one that I've seen over and over. We've probably seen more of the business email compromise than anything else when you listen to the news, you hear all about ransomware, 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 ransomware. Uh, and for a large business, that is going to be probably the biggest target because it's the easiest way to get a bunch of money. Um, However, the business email compromise on a small business is more attractive because they get into your email, they can pretend to be you as a business, and they can steal from all of your customers. And so, now you're a much more attractive target than maybe with something like ransomware.
And one of the attacks similar to that I had read about was they got into a smaller business and they started sending out invoices with a redirect from the normal payment information to an offshore or something or other, and money got paid as if it was going to the person, and it went somewhere else.
And
once that's gone,
stuff,
it's gone.
It's gone. They get it offshore, and so they may transfer it to a bank here in the States, but that bank account is constantly being swept to another account offshore. And once that money's offshore, there's very little chance of getting it back.
Yeah. We actually had, in the last year and a half, 2 years, we had a client that through a phishing scheme had gotten into the client's email and just hung out for 2 months, I think, and finally initiated it where they had reached out to one of our clients' customers with exactly like you're talking, a bogus, hey, we know you guys usually pay ACHA in this way, but this is our new account. Just and it's working with the same exact person that they always work on for accounting.
Yeah.
So because they went through your entire email and they're like, oh, look at Beth in accounting is the one they've been talking to. And so they're emailing Beth directly in accounting and saying, this is just a new information that no big deal, just click here and we'll take care of the rest. From what looks to be the actual customer or the actual client, the emails are so similar, and they actually stole some invoice or they made some invoices with their letterhead, some fake invoices with their letterhead, handwritten and everything. So it was just, it's bizarre. Well, it's not bizarre. It's a lot of work, but these guys are making a lot of money as well. And you think about it, they said that in the SBA was reporting that 88% of small business owners feel that there's a vulnerability in their infrastructure, but many of them just don't believe that they can afford professional IT. They're limited on devoting any time to it, or they just really don't know where to begin. So we're gonna go into it a little bit deeper later, but a good way for anyone to start protecting their business, their home, or their personal information is by learning about common cyber threats. So Chill with Jim is a great source for that. Understanding where your business or your home is vulnerable. Now that's a very important one. That's when we will talk about some penetration testing. That's one form of it, but you can do this with some abstract thinking and some other tools to make sure that your home and your business don't have any big holes in them. And then just we're going to go over just some overall things that you should do to improve your cybersecurity. Before on the same topic, I guess, but one of the things that was brought up was, these discussions that we have are scary. So people are losing lots of money. As a business owner, it frightens me. The things where you get into personal things. So they've hacked into my webcam. They've taken the pictures of my family and they're putting them all over the internet. These are really, really scary, intimidating things that we've found that a lot of our clients, even my family members and friends, they don't want to talk about it. It's one of those things where if it's kind of unseen and unheard, it's bliss. It's a little more bliss than to think about all that stuff. And this question came up 2 weeks ago, and it was perfect. But like, how do we approach and how do we embrace these scary technology discussions with our family, with our friends, with our clients, with our coworkers, when they don't want to talk about it? And
yeah,
so
Paul, what you're up in the New York area. Certainly you're having to have these conversations. Have you found anything that is effective? What do people respond to when you're talking to them?
What do people respond to as far as?
Yeah, when you're talking about the threats that they're facing, and people are maybe reluctant to talk about it, it's intimidating, it's a little bit scary. How do you pick up and carry on that conversation with them?
I think that I think it's important that it is scary, because when people have a fear of something, that kind of prompts action, you know. So like I feel that my goal, like you guys, is to kind of educate them and let them know the reality of the situation, and how even though they maybe perceive that they're not a target, that they are actually a target because they're low hanging fruit. You know, they don't have the resources that the big companies have, so they're easy to penetrate, and that so they have to take security seriously, and you know, letting them know about the consequences and all those kinds of things, and giving them a lot of examples. You know, it compels them that they see it now as a real situation, and they kind of like, all right, what do we got to do? I don't want to be a victim. And they've also heard all the things on the news and on the internet and all the articles they read of all these companies being compromised. So when you put all those things together, you know, years ago, people were very resistant. You know, when I would talk to them about security and taking things seriously, people would kind of think I was like, yeah, whatever, you're just trying to sell us stuff. And now it's like you talk to them about it and they actually do want to hear it, you know. And if you're not talking about it, to them, then it looks like you're like behind the times and you're not really equipped to take care of them, to protect them. And they really don't want you. They want the guy that's gonna protect them and you know, kind of be a warrior for their technology. You know?
Yeah, good. And Carlene, you're you know a non-technical person, and so I would love to hear your thoughts on technical people having this conversation with you. Now we might be singing to the choir a little bit because you're a very frequent listener to Chill with Jim. But if you're available there, would you mind just kind of giving from your perspective what motivates you to listen more uh, uh, when technical people start talking about cybersecurity?
Well, I guess because it's not my area of expertise, so it's pretty confusing, and you know, I know it's out there and it's happening a lot and it's scary. Um, so it's hard when you don't really understand and it's not, you know, what you do. I can, you know, maneuver the Caribbean and everything else, but as far as like security and everything else, it does get scary. So I guess I try and tune in to learn to hopefully prevent myself from being victim to something like this happening.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's important as technology providers. Um, we do have to serve in that educational role because it's a different world, and there are a lot of rabbit holes. Some things go very deep. They start getting very technical. So how do you break that down into something that doesn't cause a non-technical person to glaze over and just say, I have no idea what you're talking about, just go away now?
That's where, you know, the real world approach to this is actually what's happening, boots on the ground, like Paul was saying, you know, being honest about the severity and telling the truth. People can relate to those things. You know, we can relate to the stories where we get the phone call at work or we get the email at work and, hey, me too, I had that happen to me. And you start that conversation, not from necessarily a sales point of view, but from what can you as a person do in terms of better practices, and then pivot the conversation to, you know, take it from a personal level to what can you do for your business, and then scale it up from there. So it's a matter of education. And that's one of the reasons I got involved is I, you know, started my journey exploring software development, and there was so much talk at the app development level and everything else about taking security into mind as you build out these things, knowing that those threats were out there. And I got more and more interested in the security side of it. And I've got a daughter who's 8, and, you know, she's going to have to start dealing with these things sooner than later. You know, she pivots into social media and all these other pieces. So when I got involved with Code Ninjas, where we teach kids, coding, we're also sort of taking that mentality of safety into mind as well. And the earlier you can start those conversations, and I think the more personal you can make those conversations, the better.
Yeah, man, fantastic point. I love that, breaking it down kind of individually, breaking it to the personal level, then transitioning up on as we go. So how do we protect you? How do we protect your home, your family? How do we protect your business? Seems like a great progression there. As humans, we're inclined to always be attracted to something that's about us. So we get in with that, and then maybe we can go further. I guess the toughest thing that I've noticed, and it's not on a client level so much, but it's with family, friends, loved ones, is getting the point across to them without trying to fear monger or scare them so bad that I'm just telling them terrible stories about the internet. And I try to do a balance in between. And David's point about the younger, starting them out younger is going to be the way to do it. I have found that with my friends and my family, the ones that are a little more ingrained, have had a few more years on this earth, they really don't want to get into it. That's very common. Well, I don't have anything they could want. I don't care if they steal my stuff. They're not going to get anything.
They've been saying that for years and years, and so it's tough to get out of that mindset.
And so that's where I was looking for. I don't know. I don't want to take the, well, hey, they could steal your kids' pictures and put them on the internet in bad ways. Like, I don't want to go into the super scare you, but sometimes I feel like you have to. And then sometimes I feel like grandma's just never gonna get it. So that was something I wanted to talk about because
I think the older generation, I'm Gen X, 43, that era, we are definitely aware of the dangers and the implications. But even my parents' generation, they're a little more tech savvy than I think they have been in the past, and kind of understand. They've seen their parents, and they've seen the pyramid schemes and the stuff that came out of that generation, where people were fleeced of their legacy or their income or their all the work that they put in over their lives. So it's a little easier to have that conversation, I think, with people in their 50s and 60s right now than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago, because grandma and grandpa are also on social media right now. They're also the ones that are clicking on the thing. They have email, so they have technology that may not have been there 10 years ago. So it's easier to say, hey, click on this article and read about what happened to this guy, so you can see why you shouldn't be clicking on all these emails that you keep clicking on in your inbox that I have to keep fixing your computer for you for.
Yeah. Great points there. So thank you for all your opinions, and just something to keep in mind as we go. We're not trying to scare the pants off anybody, but we need to bring awareness to this. And if you get scared, join me on the beach. I'll be there chilling out too. So another thing, we're talking about businesses and how to protect ourselves, not just businesses, our personal home and all this. We had talked about pen testing in our last discussion, but actually it went into what else can we do? And one of our participants, Brad, actually, he mentioned the CIS controls as being a great start for any business to really start getting a plan, kind of laying out their infrastructure. And so what I thought we could do is I'm going to share my screen a little bit, not a little bit. I'm going to share my screen all the way, and I'd love to just kind of go down each one, and maybe we can just talk about it a little bit here. So does everybody see my 20 CIS controls? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Perfect. So, you're looking at the basic controls, so inventory and control of hardware assets. So your business or your home, you want to know what's out there. You want to know what's being plugged up. You want to know what's being connected to the internet. If you have, this is great for insurance reasons. If nothing else, I convince you is like, if something happens, then you have the information to collect all of your money for the electronics you had in your house. for your business. But this brings into the control of hardware assets is really where it helps businesses prevent kind of that insider threat or that accidental insider threat coming in and doing some bad things on your network. David, did you have any other highlights maybe on, and number two is kind of the same thing. It's just with software.
Yeah. I mean, the software is very similar to hardware. It's just what's running on your network, but it gets in there to the vulnerability management, admin passwords, and so a lot of these things start overlapping. I think number three there to me is very important. The vulnerability management. Because bad admin privileges, bad configurations, not maintaining and monitoring everything, those are vulnerabilities. And so if you're managing your vulnerabilities well, you're gonna kind of cover everything there.
Yeah, yep, and that's a good point. So this is all available on the web. If you just type in CIS controls, you can find them. There's 20 of them. We don't want to spend a whole lot of time on each, but the first ones we're talking about a lot of inventory control stuff. How do people access it? And then you're going to get into more of your kind of very specific foundational controls. So obviously you want your email and your web browsers to be protected, malware defenses, antivirus, all of these things, wireless access control. So all of those things this is like a checklist for your business where you can just get started, start asking those questions. Another great thing here, you guys, is if you already have an IT company and you have no idea what the heck they're doing ever, you can print this out and just ask them what their approach is on every one of them. Just ask them what their approach is. They don't. No, we're not saying they have to do penetration testing every week or anything like this, but it's important, I think, for us to understand what our vendors are doing for us and this is a great way to do it. Just sit down with your IT guy, ask them, and see what they say. Make sure they're on top of this stuff. Use this, I think, as a foundation to get your home, your business. It translates all over the place here, but use this as just kind of a checklist. And
yeah, and I'd like to spend a little time on number 14 there, the controlled access based on the need to know. That's one I see it so often. We go into a client's environment and everything is just wide open to everybody. And especially small businesses, they do that because it's the easiest way. If I just open it up, then I don't have to worry about each individual person. There's two things you don't realize. Number one, you're going to end up putting some sort of sensitive information out there that you may not even want your employees to see, like other people's HR records or some sort of financial data about the company that you don't necessarily want to share. But the other thing is that if one of your employees gets compromised, and it can be the part-time worker that barely does much of anything for your business, if they get compromised, this person now has access to everything. And so that's how ransomware really spreads and bites you really hard, because they start encrypting important information. So number 14 there, I just wanted to really point that one out. Controlled access based on the need to know. If a user does not need to know the information, the file, whatever the data is, then they don't need access to it.
Yeah, great point. Glad you highlighted that. Think about it as well. A lot of small businesses as well. I trust everybody in my office. I know Jan for 10 years, and I got Joe in the back, who I've known forever. So you set everything up where maybe you have a shared password list and everybody looks at it because you trust everyone. So eventually maybe Jan gets a new job or you hire a new person in that position. You're never going to remember that this new person you totally don't know that well comes into your environment and just has access to everything, because when you set it up, it was a very trustworthy, you're going into your I feel safe, I feel trusted mode, but it sets you up for later accidents. if I did that, I probably wouldn't remember. You know what I'm not saying you can't remember if you do that, but like really, if you think about it, in 2 or 3 years, you're not going to remember what Jan had access to, um, or what she didn't, or what the new person should or shouldn't have. So that's very, very important. Um, and if anybody else had any of the controls they wanted to touch on, this would be a great point, or we can just keep moving on.
I think real quick, one of the things that comes up with this, you know, in the industry when I write about articles like this, is it all comes back to education. You know, knowing about these things, knowing about the controls that you can take advantage of. You know, there's a lot of talk in the industry right now about making sure that you're working with your vendor to maybe do quarterly education classes to make sure that there's an understanding of what they handle, what they're responsible for at the managed service level versus what you at the on-site level are going to be managed for. Because I mean, it all comes down, like David said, you know, who has access to what, who's setting those accesses. So 90% of the breaches that are coming through are all because somebody misconfigured something or somebody forgot to set a permission in a way that was safe. So if you're constantly being made aware of these things and constantly talking about it at a company level every quarter and doing your trainings about these things, you'll have better controls in place.
Knowledge is power. I didn't know if Paul, you looked like you might be hopping in. I wasn't sure though. Not trying to put you on the spot.
No, this is a very good list. I think this list could be very valuable to a business owner to start a conversation with their IT company or their in-house IT person, and just kind of like use it to open a conversation, you know, because I would feel pretty comfortable that if a client brought this to me, that I could, you know, give them good, fair answers to this stuff. So, you know, you don't really know if it's the right answer or not, but you know how the guy's answering you, you know, and if he has confidence or not in what he's saying, you know.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I think, you know, for like the lady that's on the call with us, Carlene, like, you know, she, in the end, the customer or the end user is never going to know all these things. You know, it's going to be, you know, do you have the right person, the right team, you know, behind you to make sure that all this stuff is taken care of, you know, so that, you know, someone that has a proven track record of executing it on it.
Yeah, great points. Great points. And it's just, you know, I love that you're just getting a feel for what they know. So you're asking them questions, and just like Paul was saying, you'll be able to, even if you don't know what the heck they're talking. Like if I talk to an accountant or someone who helps me with my financials, I am lost. But if I hear like it sounds like they know what they're doing, there's people out there. But you know, most of the time you can kind of at least tell if the guy's tripping up over, you know, explaining what malware is to you. You might have a really big problem, but they should be able to touch on all of these. So wanted to bring that up, and everybody out there, that's just online. So please check it out. It's a great list for everybody to have. Leads into another big topic we talked about, which was work from home employees. So user-defined setups. How as a company, how as a business owner, am I going to be able to set my employees up at home for work and know that all of the things that the user set up, computer, the internet, the wireless, their smart TV, their Echo, their whatever it is, how are we going to know that they're safe and that they're doing it right? We talked about, I shared when I just put in a new cable modem at the house, and it's a Wi-Fi cable modem mix. And the instructions out there, number one is the absolute easiest, most insecure way to set this up. And this is how you do it. So then you know, that's it, you're set up. And then actually, if you look at the last number 6, step number 6, it says, if you want to, you can log into the modem at this address and change all of the information. It's the last thing on the page in the entire booklet. How
Yeah,
is
and what
my
I assume they start throwing out IP addresses, which automatically looks kind of weird. It's like, what is that? And oh, wait, go in and change my. This is working right now. I'm not getting into that. I don't want to break it, so I'm just going to leave it.
And how many times have we gone in and tried to do those instructions and messed it all up where it doesn't work? I've done that.
Yeah, yep.
Then
Yeah.
you spend hours trying to Google to fix it.
That's a
There you
great point,
go.
Carlene. And we've all been there. We've all been there.
From your phone because your internet connection no longer works.
Exactly.
You know, when we talked about it last time, I automatically was like, we need to come up with a new business. There it is. For hire, we set up your work from home employees, because and that's why I love having this group. And Carlene, you're doing great, giving me so many different angles to look at things from. But what do you guys think? I mean, how are we going to do this? How are we going to tell someone to go buy? You can rent a very secure wireless router from us for only 30 bucks a month, 20 bucks a month.
One of the
They'll be like, well, no, I just bought one for $100 and it's mine
Yeah.
forever.
One of the solutions that's been floating around recently because of all this, when I was doing my AWS class for Amazon Web Services, is a lot of companies are setting up sort of a server side operating system that is portal accessible, and then giving their employees just a Chromebook or something that they can just log into through a website, and all the security, all the interactions, everything that is dangerous and potentially accessible is being done on the server side, so it's at least a little bit more safe behind Amazon's systems.
Yeah.
And all you're worrying about is an interface, so you're not having to worry about net speed, you're not having to worry about any of those things, just an internet connection.
Yeah, and that is a terrific solution. I'll say it is number one, it's fairly expensive. So what you're talking about is moving everything to the cloud, and so users, rather than having everything on their desktop, it's kept in a virtual desktop, and Microsoft even calls it Windows Virtual Desktop, WVD. You create the Windows Virtual Desktop, or whatever it may be. You put it out there and you work from there. That is a terrific approach. It's still a little bit expensive, I think. And so then you get into that discussion: is it less expensive to set up a small firewall on everybody's home network that maybe does some automatic network segmentation or something? Or what most companies end up doing, that's expensive, I ain't doing that.
Yes. Yeah. Then even with the designated system all in the cloud, my mind still goes to mobile devices, email. I mean, if they're setting up their Outlook account on their phones, how are they doing it? Just all of these, it's just becoming more and more. There's so many more. Like now we have to look at their smart TV and then their Bluetooth speaker. We have to see how their my roommate has a Bluetooth grill where he can control it from his phone and set the temperature, and it just stays that temperature at all times. So he's cooking a roast for 8 hours overnight. Anytime he needs to change the temperature, he goes from his bed after his alarm goes off, changes the temperature, and that's it. So if you think about all these things that are amazing and awesome with our convenience, with convenience and ease of access comes a security risk, almost always with life. So like that's where I'm just thinking of all these, like how do we protect those areas? And I don't know how quick we're going to be moving back into commercial space anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't see the trend is no longer a trend. I don't think, as far as work from home. You're going to see some moving back into offices, but not nearly to where it was before. So the work from home life is going to continue. I'm thinking VPNs. You have to at least have a VPN. running on any work machine to protect that traffic, to build that tunnel of encrypted data going back and forth, that even if other things on the network are compromised, hopefully they're not picking up on the information going back and forth on your work machine. And that's a fairly inexpensive solution. It's not overly complicated to implement. And so I feel like, and Paul, David, y'all, feel free to disagree, but I think that's the very base minimum thing that you have to do is have a good VPN.
Yeah, I agree with that. You need a good VPN. We've taken the VPN a little further, and we've all our VPNs are doing 2FA also.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so 2FA is two-factor authentication, or MFA, multi-factor authentication. So you're probably using some sort of service like this, but when you try to log in, it's gonna probably text you a number to your phone or send you an email. It's another form of authenticating that it is you. And so that's a very important one. I think I did hear a stat that, systems that aren't using the 2FA or multi-factor authentication are probably just going to be really, really easy to get into. Is coming up soon here. So want to be careful about that. Last time, David, Bryn, you mentioned biometrics, and I would love to hear more about biometrics, and maybe do you have any use cases that you've known of, or maybe Paul, some biometrics that we could talk about?
Paul, you go ahead first. I've done it very theoretically with some of the writing that I've done. It hasn't, from what I've read and seen, it's a trend. It's something that businesses are starting to talk more and more about, but it hasn't really gone too wide yet.
Okay.
Yeah, my experience, I would say, is not too deep there either. It's not something that's on the front of what we're doing.
Gotcha.
I think the two-factor definitely though is becoming more prevalent, and it's becoming more complicated in terms of, it's not just going to your phone now, it's actually going on your phone as an app that you then have to thumbprint into. Well, I guess that's where maybe your biometrics would come into it. So I've had to set up like 3 or 4 in the last couple of weeks for different services, where you thumbprint in and then it has a timer and it's just constantly changing all your little access codes and stuff like that. I actually had to walk my 8-year-old how to do that on her phone because she wanted to start playing Overwatch, and in order to sort of secure her account when I'm not there and I'm not involved with the login and everything else, I showed her how to do that, so at least I know that she's logging in safely.
Yeah, and that I brought it up because so there's a few common factors that that are in the industry right now that can be used for authentication. It's something so something would be a password, maybe a PIN number, something you have. So maybe that's your cell phone, maybe that's one of those little smart cards that changes the number all the time and you have it, and then something you are, that's when it would become into the maybe a fingerprint, eye scan, those type of things where there's I think more and more common, we're gonna really have to start hitting all 3 of those categories, because passwords, we know there's a major issue there. Something you have can also lead to some easy get arounds. And then the last thing, something you are, is typically much harder to actually fake.
Yeah, I think the difficulty with the something you are, and that's the biometrics, is it's not very reliable from the technology standpoint. For iPhones, they've been tracking your fingerprint for a while. Laptops do it. Now they do Face ID, so you can just pick up your phone and put it in front of your face, and it reads your face. If you start digging into that, though, they're not very reliable. They're not really a good form of authentication. They're easy to trick, basically, and so I think it's something that needs to happen and is going to happen, but it's going to take some improvement in technology before that really becomes the go-to method, that the factor that you really lean on. So
Yeah, good point. Yeah, if the technology is not there yet, and that is a great point. I didn't realize it was that problematic still.
The ones that
Yeah.
trip me out are the ones where it's like it tracks how you type, as to like how you type your password, the speed at which you type your password, the pattern in which you type your password, to tell you whether or not it's you. And I've had a couple, and I've tested out a couple of those where it's like I try to type it a little bit differently, and it's like, nope, you failed. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll keep advancing. I know as we go, like there'll be more and more cool ways for us to authenticate who we are. For us at the tech park where we have our office, we use the Retina scanner, which is still so awesome to me. I just feel like I'm working for the CIA every time I go in there. Like, or I'll just like, if I ever go on a date, I'll just, I just gotta stop at work real quick. Let me just do this. And ooh, what is he doing there? So
I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
sorry. Not at liberty to say. So yeah, those were some of the highlights we had. I think we went over some really, really good ways to help us all stay safe out there. We talked about training your employees, training your family members, your kids, your mom, your dad, grandma, please, on a lot of security principles. You want, just really start them out with some good cyber hygiene. So strong passwords and all the things that we talk about go 1,000 times. So, you want to protect your information from getting into the hands of other people by, you don't want to just leave your computers open, your networks open, and your cyber, your um, your bank accounts or anything like that. You don't want to put in low security because they're going to get in. And I mean, besides that,
Yeah, one thing that I would like to add, I thought about it as we were talking here. If you are a small business with email, which I think is about 99.99% of small businesses today, go to I guess a robust system. Microsoft, a lot of people love to complain about Microsoft, but they have done a tremendous job with Microsoft 365 and putting in some very basic protections for your email. And that it's just the base package. It's not the super expensive thing. You can get more expensive, but just the very basic package from Microsoft 365 is very strong. And so if you're running on a cheap service, you're vulnerable. And if you just make the move to Microsoft 365, you increase your security substantially. So I would say if you're not already on it, go ahead and start moving there.
Awesome. Great point. Yeah. Built in, all part of it. So at least get some protections going on. Yeah. And a great point about if you're getting something for free or extremely cheap, usually you're trading it off for something else. Maybe security, maybe you're giving them information. Maybe it's just a bad product. I don't know.
Yeah. If you're not paying for something, that means you are the product. So, people look at Google and look at all the free stuff you get. It's not free. It's not free. You're the product. They're selling you. They need you to use their stuff so that they can better sell you. So
exactly. Well, thank you all for coming out. I mean, this has been a really good topic. If there's anything else I've missed, we do have a few more minutes. If anybody wanted to ask or touch on another subject while we have some of the experts we do on here, that's great. Anything from Facebook?
No. I have a comment here from Tommy Foster, but I'm not sure exactly what he was putting in there. So Tommy, if you want to go in again, we can answer any kind of question you have.
Cool, cool. Yeah, otherwise, David, if you want, while we're seeing if Tommy writes us back, you want to give us a little breakdown of what is in store next week?
Yeah, so we cover a lot of cybersecurity here on Chill with Jim every week, but we also do some productivity stuff too. And I mentioned Microsoft 365 before. Next week we're going to be talking about Microsoft 365 lists. So it's somewhat new, I guess you could say. It's not really new. It's reimagined. List has been on SharePoint for a long time, but they just did a major overhaul to tie it in better with Teams. And Microsoft is doing a lot of that right now. So we're going to dig into that a little bit because I think it's a cool tool that you can adopt fairly quickly and get working for you.
Awesome, awesome. So we put the information on the chat there. So come on out, learn a little bit more. As always, this is supposed to be very free flowing, and so if you come on with any questions, even if it's not about the topic, most of the time, we're gonna go ahead and address it. If it's why Alabama is the best football team in the world, then David's probably not going to get in on that conversation. But anything else, maybe will probably be game.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. All right. Well, I think without further questions, we'll go ahead and close her out. Really, really appreciate the support for this Chill with Jim episode. As always, reach out to us, Facebook, YouTube, however you'd like if you have any questions or if you'd like more information about Strix, Louisiana. And tune in next week where it's always the same chill time and the same chill network. Thank you all for coming.
Good to see you, Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Adios.
All right.